You know, for as long as we've had recorded history, we've had war. It's a problem that feels as old as humanity itself. But what if the solution isn't on some distant battlefield, but actually inside each and every one of us? In this explainer, we're going to explore one author's really personal and philosophical vision for peace, a response to what they see as our oldest and most tragic habit.
So the author frames their entire argument with this incredibly powerful quote from Mark Twain, and it's a real gut punch of a starting point, isn't it? It forces us to look at a pretty brutal truth. The rest of the animal kingdom might fight for survival, but humanity, from this point of view, wages war in cold blood. It's not just conflict, it's the atrocity of atrocities, a uniquely human problem.
And this leads us right to the central question the author keeps asking. We are so proud of our intelligence, right? We build these incredible civilizations, we create amazing art. But if we're constantly, as the author puts it, killing our young and creating cemeteries where gardens should be, can we really call ourselves intelligent? It's a direct challenge to how we see ourselves.
To really get the author's solution, we first need to see how they diagnose the problem. And that means looking at the external symptoms, the chaos we see all around us.
Think about this. In 2022, a Russian military convoy heading for Kyiv was 40 miles long. The author uses this image to make the reality of war today feel, well, real. Can you even picture that? A line of tanks that long? It's this staggering symbol of how, even now, warfare is just brutally physical and overwhelmingly destructive.
But then, in the face of that massive machine, the author points to this one moment of pure human defiance. To them, Zelensky's words aren't just a soundbite. They're this incredible show of courage, one person's resolve standing against this overwhelming force. It's the human spirit fighting back.
You know, the author argues that it's not just about tanks and bullets. Words are weapons, too. They point to leaders using rhetoric that just seems to escalate everything rather than calm things down. Whether it's complimenting an adversary's tactics or threatening fire and fury, this kind of language is seen as just throwing gasoline on a fire that's already burning.
So after looking at all that external chaos, the author makes a really important pivot. Their whole point is that war doesn't just happen out there. It actually starts somewhere much, much closer to home. It starts on the battlefield inside of us.
And the author identifies this as ground zero for all conflict. Every single war, from a little spat on a playground to a full-blown global catastrophe, starts with this one thing: aggression. It's an aggressive thought that spirals into an aggressive action. From this perspective, the battlefield is just the last tragic result of a war that actually began in the mind.
So what fuels that aggression? Well, the author has a great term for it: the inner weeds. Things like anger, greed, that lust for power and control, intolerance. They believe these weeds grow out of what they call an untrained mind. You know, just like a garden that gets overrun if you don't tend to it, a mind that's left unchecked can become a source of chaos that eventually spills out into the real world.
The source really presents us with two paths. There's the path of man, which is driven by that chaotic, untrained mind, and it leads straight to anger and destruction. But then there's the path of the human being, who is guided by something higher, a divine intelligence. That's the road to unity, love, and compassion. And the choice, the author says, is up to us.
To really hammer this point home, the author brings in this message from the Dalai Lama. War is outdated. Just let that sink in for a second. It's not presented as some lofty ideal, but as a practical reality. In our world today, violence is basically obsolete. The only path forward is through dialogue and understanding, skills that come from that higher, humane path.
And to illustrate this, the author shares this fascinating, kind of wild story about a study done on chickens. So when scientists put all the best and brightest chickens together in one group, they ended up killing each other for dominance until only a few were left. But meanwhile, a group of just average chickens, they cooperated and they thrived. It's a perfect metaphor for us, right? We often glorify this aggressive winner-take-all competition, but real success, real survival, comes from cooperation.
Okay, so if the problem starts inside us, then the solution has to start there too. And this brings us to the author's prescription for healing, summed up perfectly by those famous words from John Lennon.
So here's the key takeaway. World peace isn't something that politicians just sign on a piece of paper. According to the author, it's a personal project. It starts with these steps. First, you have to stop the war inside yourself. Then you have to actively pull out those weeds, the anger, the intolerance. You replace them by cultivating kindness until your inner world and your outer actions are finally in sync. And the author is crystal clear about this. Kindness is not weakness. It's the exact opposite. They define it as our most fundamental nature, the very foundation of the universe. It's not just some nice feeling, it is a creative, powerful force. In this view, being kind isn't just a moral choice, it's the most practical and powerful thing you can do.
The author says we need a whole new kind of leadership, one that's based on timeless wisdom. They pull from all these different figures to make the point: the compromise of King Solomon, the call for dialogue from the Dalai Lama, the plea for peace from John Lennon, and the message of love from Jesus. The idea here is that the answers, they've been right in front of us all along. We just have to start listening.
Now, all of this might sound like this huge global task, right? But the author brings it right back down to earth, right back to the individual. In the end, it all comes down to you.
The author uses the butterfly effect to make a really powerful point. I mean, if one tiny action, a butterfly's wings, can cause a hurricane halfway around the world, imagine what a single act of peace could do. They ask, why don't we create a spark of peace inside of us? The idea is that one person choosing kindness could, theoretically, send these incredible ripples of positive change across the entire planet.
Our choices basically lead to one of two mindsets. On one side, you have the me consciousness. It's all about the ego. It takes everything personally, it creates division, and it leads to a world in turmoil. But a shift to a we consciousness changes everything. It's calm, it's about cooperation, and in the author's view, it is the only path to real peace on Earth.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of the message. It's about individual responsibility. No single person has the whole answer. No one can fix this alone. You have one piece of the puzzle of peace. And without your peace, your commitment to doing that inner work and choosing kindness, the whole picture can never be complete. Every single one of us is absolutely essential. Finally, the author leaves us with this huge, hopeful vision of what humanity could become if we actually make this collective shift together. It starts with this simple but incredibly profound idea. You're not just some person living on a planet. You are stardust. You are literally a child of the cosmos. And for the author, this isn't just pretty poetry. It's a reminder of our true magnificent origin and our deep connection to absolutely everything in the universe.
And this all fits into a grand timeline. For eons, we've been stuck, like a scratched record just playing war, war, war over and over. But right now, the author argues, we're at a critical turning point. It's a choice between self-destruction or finally waking up. And their ultimate vision, maybe 1,000,000 years from now, is that mankind finally evolves into a kind man, a species that's united with the universe and has moved beyond conflict entirely.
So we end right where we started, with a question. The author lays out this incredible path from inner conflict to cosmic unity. But they make it very clear that the journey is made up of individual steps. Our steps. It's a collective puzzle, and your piece is missing. So the question for all of us to really think about is, what piece will you be?